know yourself before the world tells you who to be. There comes a moment in every life when the noise of the world gets so loud that it begins to drown out the sound of your own soul. You start hearing the voices that tell you what success should look like, what happiness should feel like, what dreams are acceptable, which ones are too big for someone like you. But I came to tell you, before you let the world define you, you better know who you are. Because if you don't know yourself, the world will write your story for you, and you'll spend your life acting out a role you were never meant to play. You'll chase applause instead of purpose. You'll wear masks instead of truth. And you'll wonder why you feel so empty even when you're surrounded by everything you thought you wanted. Knowing yourself is not arrogance. It's awareness. It's standing in front of your reflection and saying, I may not have it all figured out. I know what I was created for. It's refusing to shrink for those who are intimidated by your light. It's deciding that you'd rather be authentic and misunderstood than fake and applauded. We live in a world that is constantly branding, labeling, defining. It will call you too loud, too ambitious, too emotional, too different. But what they call too much is often exactly what you were born to be. The world can't handle the fullness of a person who has met themselves, because once you know who you are, you stop asking for permission to be it. Some of you have been trying to fit into spaces that were never built for your identity. You've been adjusting yourself to match the comfort of others, dimming your brilliance just to belong. But you were not created to blend in. You were designed to stand out. You can't fulfill your purpose pretending to be someone else's idea of acceptable. You must sit with yourself long enough to meet your own depth. Silence the world. Turn off the comparisons. Step away from the crowd long enough to hear your own heartbeat. Because somewhere beneath all the expectations, beneath the fear, beneath the opinions, there is you, the unfiltered, unapologetic, undeniable you. And that, you, is powerful. When you know who you are, you stop chasing validation. You stop settling for crumbs of approval. You stop begging people to see your worth. Because your value isn't up for debate. It's been established from the beginning. You were not an accident. You were not a mistake. You are intentional, strategic, and chosen. So don't let the world tell you who to be. Don't let their timelines rush you, their opinions shake you, or their definitions limit you. Know yourself before they try to sell you an image that doesn't fit your soul. Because when you truly know yourself, you walk differently, you speak with authority, you live with clarity. Before you chase the spotlight, before you seek applause, before you measure your worth by how many people approve of you, stop and ask yourself, who am I? Because if you don't know who you are before you rise, you will lose yourself when you do. Influence without identity is like a house without a foundation. It may look strong on the outside. The first storm will show what it's made of. The tragedy of our time is that too many people are seeking recognition before revelation. They want followers before they've found themselves. They want a platform before they've discovered their purpose. Influence built on confusion is fragile. You cannot lead others when you are lost within yourself. You cannot pour from a cup that's cracked. Before the world knows your name, you must first become acquainted with your own soul. Identity is not something the world gives you. It's something the Creator placed in you. It is not discovered in applause. It is revealed in stillness. It is not found in the crowd. It is discovered in the quiet conversations you have with yourself. You must learn to look inward, not outward, for definition. Because when you allow the world to define you, it will change its opinion the moment you stop fitting its narrative. One day you'll be praised, the next day you'll be criticized. And if your identity depends on their validation, you'll crumble under the pressure of inconsistency. Before you seek to make an impact, you must understand the imprint of who you are. Influence without identity breeds insecurity. You'll start doing things not because they're right for you, but because they'll get attention. You'll start performing instead of living. You'll start bending your values just to stay relevant. And every time you trade authenticity for approval, you lose a piece of yourself. You must learn the discipline of being grounded before being known. Fame cannot heal a fractured identity. Success cannot satisfy an empty soul. You can climb the highest mountains, earn the biggest titles, or gain the loudest applause, and still feel unseen if you never took the time to see yourself. Because identity is not built on what you achieve, but on what you believe about yourself when no one is watching. There are too many people walking around in borrowed identities, living out someone else's dream, chasing someone else's version of success. Wearing someone else's crown, they forgot that their uniqueness is their power. You can't influence the world by imitating it. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs your authenticity. It needs the sound of your truth, the depth of your experience, the power of your voice. You can't give what you haven't found. Before influence, there must be intimacy with yourself, with your purpose, with the one who designed you. You must know your values so deeply that no opportunity can buy them. You must know your worth so clearly that no rejection can shake it. You must know your purpose so passionately that no distraction can derail it. Because when you stand firm in your identity, the storms may come. They cannot move you. The world will try to shape you into what's popular, profitable, and predictable. But if you allow yourself to be molded by trends, you'll become temporary. Influence that lasts is rooted in authenticity that cannot be imitated. It is not about how many people follow you. It's about how many lives are transformed because you dared to be real. True influence begins when you stop performing and start being. You know who you are. You lead differently. You speak with conviction, not confusion. You move with purpose, not pressure. You create not to be liked, to make a difference. You are not intimidated by the presence of others because you understand your presence has its own power. You are not in competition because your lane was custom built for you. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel because you realize you are walking your own divine path. Every great leader, every visionary, every world changer had to face that private moment identity. That moment where you ask yourself, who am I when the crowd is gone? Who am I when no one is applauding? Who am I when it's just me, my thoughts, my truth? Because until you can answer that, you are not ready to handle influence. Influence without identity is dangerous. It feeds the ego, but starves the soul. It gives power without purpose and noise without meaning. You must take time to build your inner world before expanding your outer one. You must sit in the discomfort of self-discovery. You must face the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid, your fears, your insecurities, your doubts. Because every part of you tells a story. Identity is not about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about owning your truth, your scars, and your strength. The world may try to shame your past. You must remember that even your mistakes were classrooms for your growth. Influence that endures comes from people who know themselves deeply. They are not swayed by trends or titles. They do not need applause to stay motivated. They do not depend on external validation because their confidence comes from within. They understand that being known by millions means nothing if you are a stranger to yourself. So before you seek to build your platform, build your person. Before you try to shape the world, allow your soul to be shaped. Before you stand in front of the crowd, stand firm in your convictions. Because the world doesn't need another influencer. It needs individuals with identity, people who lead with authenticity and live with integrity. When you truly know yourself, influence becomes natural. You don't have to force it, fake it, or fabricate it. People are drawn to truth. They can sense when someone is real. Your authenticity becomes your magnet, your purpose becomes your voice, and your character becomes your brand. You won't have to chase opportunities. They'll find you because alignment attracts abundance. So pause before you post. Reflect before you speak. Know before you move. Because the foundation of influence is identity, and the most powerful person in the room is the one who doesn't need validation to feel valuable. Before the world tries to tell you who you should be, take the time to meet the person you already are. Peel back the layers of performance, silence the noise of opinions, and listen to that quiet voice inside that says, "This is me." When you live from that place, from the center of your authentic self, no amount of criticism can break you. No level of fame can change you. There comes a time in life when you have to make a choice between being real and being liked, between authenticity and approval. between living in truth and performing for acceptance. And that choice, though difficult, defines the quality of your peace, depth of your purpose, and the strength of your soul. Because nothing destroys a person faster than pretending to be someone they're not, just to be accepted by people who don't even know who they truly are. We live in a world that worships approval. From the moment we wake up, we're scrolling, comparing, adjusting. We filter our pictures, polish our words, tailor our personalities, all to fit into an image that earns applause. But the tragedy of this generation is that we've mistaken attention for love, validation for value. We've become addicted to approval, even if it costs us our authenticity. What's the point of being liked by everyone if you no longer like yourself? What's the point of being celebrated for a version of you that doesn't even exist? You can win the crowd and still lose your soul. You can have followers and still feel forgotten. You can be praised by thousands but unknown to yourself. Authenticity is freedom. It's the courage to show up as you are, not as the world wants you to be, not as your fears tell you to be, but as your truth calls you to be. It's the strength to stand in your own skin and say, I am enough, even if not everyone understands me. Authenticity is not perfection. It's not about having it all together. It's about being honest about your struggles, your growth, your scars, and your light. Approval, on the other hand, is a cage. It looks beautiful on the outside. It comes with applause, smiles, and temporary validation, but inside it suffocates. You start living for others' expectations instead of your own convictions. You measure your worth by reactions instead of reflection. You become a slave to perception, always chasing the next like, the next compliment, the next nod of acceptance. But let me tell you something, the approval of people is a moving target. What they love today, they'll criticize tomorrow. The same voices that cheer for you when you fit their narrative will turn on you the moment you outgrow it. That's why you can't build your identity on their approval. It's unstable. It's conditional. It's temporary. Authenticity will cost you something. Oh yes, it will. You might lose people. You might lose comfort. You might lose opportunities that were never meant for your truth. But what you gain is far greater peace. There is no peace like the peace of knowing you no longer have to perform. There's no freedom like the freedom of showing up fully as yourself. Unfiltered, unmasked, unapologetic. When you live authentically, you attract differently. You stop begging for spaces that don't value you. You stop forcing connections that drain you. You stop settling for relationships built on convenience instead of connection. Because authenticity acts as a filter. It reveals who's meant to stay and who was only drawn to your performance. Real recognizes real. And when you walk in your truth, those meant for you will find you without pretense or persuasion. Approval is rooted in fear. The fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being misunderstood. But authenticity is rooted in faith. Faith that who you are is enough. Faith that your purpose doesn't require permission. Faith that your truth will open the doors that were designed for you. Some of you have spent too long trying to be what others expect, shrinking your light so you don't make them uncomfortable. Softening your voice so you don't seem intimidating, changing your vision so you fit their version. You can't fulfill your calling pretending to be someone else. You can't inspire anyone living behind a mask. The power that changes lives flows through truth, not performance. When you choose authenticity over approval, you stop chasing validation and start living in alignment. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, am I proud of me? You stop needing applause to feel seen, because your worth isn't determined by who claps. It's confirmed by who created you. There's a quiet strength that comes from authenticity. You begin to realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to compete, impress, or explain. You walk differently because your steps are rooted in confidence, not comparison. You speak differently because your words flow from conviction, not fear. You love differently because you no longer seek completion in others. You've already found it within. The world may not always reward authenticity immediately. People are drawn to illusions, trends, and appearances. But in the long run, truth always stands. Because authenticity outlives imitation. It carries a timelessness that no popularity can match. The people who truly make an impact, who change hearts, who build legacies, are those who dare to be real when everyone else was pretending. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand yourself. You don't need everyone to approve of your journey. You just need the courage to walk it, because approval fades, but authenticity remains. The applause will stop, the spotlight will shift, but the person you've become through honesty will endure. Let them talk. Let them question. Let them misunderstand. You weren't created to be understood by everyone. You were created to be authentic to your purpose. And sometimes your authenticity will challenge others. It will expose what's fake in them. It will confront what's false around you. Don't dim yourself to make others comfortable in their pretending. Keep shining. Keep standing. Keep being. When you look back on your life, you won't remember who approved of you. You'll remember the moments when you chose yourself, when you said no to the crowd and yes to your truth, when you stood firm in your values even when it cost you acceptance, when you looked in the mirror and said, I love the person I'm becoming. Because at the end of the day, approval feeds the ego, authenticity nourishes the soul. Approval makes you popular, but authenticity makes you powerful. Approval wins attention, but authenticity wins trust. Approval comes from the outside in, but authenticity grows from the inside out. So choose authenticity even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's uncomfortable. Because being true to yourself is the greatest act of courage you will ever live. The moment you stop seeking approval and start living authentically is the moment your life stops being a performance and starts being a purpose. There is a kind of noise that doesn't come from speakers or city streets. It comes from within. From the endless chatter of comparison, constant opinions of others, and the echo of our own doubts. It is the noise of distraction, the hum of expectation, static that keeps you from hearing your own voice. If you are not careful, that noise will drown out your destiny. It will blur your focus, weaken your faith, make you forget who you were before the world told you who to be. We live in a time where the volume of life is turned all the way up. Everywhere you look, someone is shouting for your attention. Social media tells you what success should look like. Society tells you what beauty should be. Culture tells you what you should chase. And before you know it, your mind is crowded, your spirit is cluttered, and your peace is gone. You start living by reaction instead of intention. You start running after noise instead of purpose. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is be still, to step away from the chaos and learn to hear your own heart beat again. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. In the stillness, you remember what truly matters. In the quiet, you can finally distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. When you silence the noise, you create space for clarity, creativity, divine direction. The noise around you will always try to define you. It will tell you what's trending, what's valuable, what's acceptable. But when you live by the world's noise, you lose touch with your own frequency. You forget that your soul has a rhythm, your purpose has a sound, and your life has a melody that can only be heard when you quiet everything else. The world may be loud, but wisdom whispers. Peace doesn't shout, it speaks softly. And if you're too busy listening to everything else, you'll miss the voice that matters most. You must learn the discipline of withdrawal. Sometimes you have to log out, step back, and breathe, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. You cannot hear direction in distraction. You cannot receive revelation while scrolling through chaos. Every visionary, every world changer, every purpose-driven soul understands the power of silence. Great ideas are born in quiet places. Strength is rebuilt in stillness. Purpose is clarified when the noise fades away. The problem with noise is that it never stops unless you decide to stop it. There will always be people with opinions about your life. There will always be voices telling you what you can't do, who you can't be, and how you should live. You are not obligated to listen to everything you hear. You are not required to respond to every critic or engage every distraction. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It is how you protect your energy, preserve your peace, and keep your focus aligned with your vision. Sometimes the noise comes from within. The inner critic that tells you you're not enough. The fear that whispers that you'll fail. The doubt that questions your worth. Those internal voices can be louder than any external noise. That's why you must learn to speak life to yourself. Replace the noise of negativity with the sound of truth. Speak affirmations louder than your fears. Declare faith over your frustration, because your mind will believe whatever it hears most often, so make sure it's hearing peace. When you silence the noise, you give yourself permission to heal. So many people are carrying pain that's been buried under the noise of business. They keep themselves distracted so they don't have to face their own hurt. But true healing requires stillness. You have to sit in silence long enough to feel, to release, to forgive, and to let go. The noise numbs, but silence transforms. You don't need to explain your silence to everyone. Some people will think your quietness is weakness. They'll mistake your peace for passivity. Let them. They can't understand the strength it takes to be still when you could react, to stay calm when you're provoked, to walk away instead of proving a point. There is a maturity that only silence teaches, a wisdom that only solitude can reveal. In silence, you begin to see what was once blurry. You start to understand that not every battle deserves your energy, not every argument needs your response, not every opportunity is meant for you. You realize that peace is not found in the absence of problems, but in the presence of focus. When the noise is silenced, you begin to hear your intuition, your inner guidance, your divine purpose whispering. This is the way. Walk in it. Noise thrives on confusion. It keeps you running in circles, chasing approval, reacting to everything. But silence creates alignment. It allows you to operate from clarity instead of chaos. You begin to move intentionally. You start saying no with confidence and yes with conviction. You stop living for attention and start living from awareness. That's where true power begins, not in being the loudest voice, but in being the calmest presence. Think about it. The most powerful forces in nature make no noise. The sun doesn't shout to shine. The ocean doesn't argue to prove its depth. The mountain doesn't boast about its height. They simply exist in the fullness of their being. And you too don't have to announce your greatness to be great. You don't have to scream your value to be valuable. When you're confident in who you are, silence becomes your strength. The world will tell you that you have to stay visible, stay loud, stay relevant. But purpose doesn't require performance. Growth doesn't need an audience. You can evolve quietly. You can build privately. You can heal in hidden places. When the time is right, the results will speak louder than any noise ever could. Every season of greatness begins with silence. It's in the quiet moments that you build character. It's in solitude that you develop resilience. It's in silence that you learn patience and trust. Don't rush the process because the world is loud. The seed grows underground before it ever reaches the sunlight. In the same way, you are developing in the silence before your season of visibility. So, my friend, silence the noise. Turn down the volume of distraction. Step away from the chaos long enough to hear your purpose whisper again. You don't need everyone's approval to move forward. You don't need constant noise to prove progress. Sometimes the greatest movement happens in stillness. Protect your peace like it's treasure, because it is. Guard your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Stop letting the world's noise dictate your direction. Get quiet enough to hear your own spirit, steady enough to follow your intuition, grounded enough to trust your process. In a world that celebrates noise, be the calm. In a culture obsessed with attention, be the focus. In an environment that rewards performance, be the peace. Because when you learn to silence the noise around you and within you, you will finally hear the sound of your destiny calling your name. There comes a moment in every person's life when they have to decide what matters more, being liked by the crowd or being aligned with their calling. The world will always try to seduce you with applause, attention, and acceptance. None of those things can replace the deep fulfillment that comes from walking in purpose. Popularity may fill your calendar, but purpose fills your soul. You can be famous and still feel forgotten. You can have everyone's approval and still be far from your assignment. That's why you must choose purpose over popularity. Popularity is a performance, purpose is a conviction. Popularity changes with trends. Purpose stands the test of time. When you live for popularity, you are at the mercy of people's opinions. When you live for purpose, care enough, you are anchored in divine direction. You move differently when you know you were created for something greater than applause. You no longer chase validation because your value is already settled. The problem with popularity is that it's never enough. It keeps you running, performing, and pretending. It teaches you to prioritize image over integrity, exposure over excellence, and comfort over conviction. You start shaping your life around what will get approval instead of what will bear fruit. But purpose will challenge you to grow. Purpose will demand honesty, discipline, and courage. It won't always make you comfortable, but it will always make you complete. Some people spend their entire lives chasing visibility, but never discover identity. They climb ladders that lean against the wrong walls, and when they reach the top, they realize the view isn't worth the climb. You can't measure a meaningful life by how many people know your name. You measure it by how many lives are better because you showed up. Purpose doesn't need a spotlight. It needs obedience. It doesn't ask, how many followers do I have? But who am I helping? The world is loud about popularity. It tells you that success means attention. It tells you that significance comes from visibility. But popularity is fleeting. It fades as quickly as it rises. One day they cheer for you, the next day they forget you. If your identity depends on the world's applause, you will live exhausted trying to keep their attention. When you live for purpose, you don't need to chase anyone's approval. Your worth is not up for vote. Purpose gives you direction even when the crowd disagrees. It teaches you to walk alone if necessary. Some of the most powerful seasons in your life will be the ones where nobody understands what you're doing. That's because purpose often requires isolation before elevation. You have to be willing to disappoint people to stay true to your calling. You can't fulfill your destiny trying to fit into everyone else's comfort zone. Popularity will ask you to perform. Purpose will ask you to persevere. Popularity wants to be seen. Purpose wants to serve. When you choose purpose, you stop performing and start producing. You stop living for applause and start living for impact. You stop chasing recognition and start creating transformation. The applause of the crowd may be loud. It's temporary. The fulfillment of purpose is eternal. You were not created to please everyone. You were created to please the one who gave you a purpose. Every time you compromise your values to be accepted, you trade authenticity for illusion. Every time you water down your truth to be liked, you distance yourself from your destiny. The crowd may love the version of you that conforms, but destiny can only meet the version of you that's real. Sometimes purpose will lead you into seasons that don't look popular. It will call you to take paths that others avoid, to make decisions that don't make sense to the majority. Purpose will ask you to walk through doors that no one else sees yet. It will call you to build when no one believes. But that's the beauty of divine purpose. It doesn't wait for approval, creates its own atmosphere of faith. You may not be the most celebrated, but you can be the most consistent. You may not be the most followed. You can be the most faithful. Purpose teaches you endurance, how to keep going when no one's clapping, how to stay steady when no one's watching, how to believe even when nothing looks like it's working. Because purpose isn't about being seen, it's about becoming. The pursuit of popularity is often fueled by insecurity, the need to prove something. But when you know your purpose, you don't need to prove yourself. You realize that your assignment is too sacred to be cheapened by the opinions of those who don't understand it. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to walk your path. You understand that some won't support you because they're not supposed to. Purpose separates you so you can be refined. When you choose purpose, your success becomes sustainable. Popularity fades when attention shifts. Purpose continues to grow because it's rooted in truth. Purpose builds legacy. Popularity builds a moment. Legacy is when your name means something long after the spotlight fades. And legacy is only born through purpose. There's a peace that comes with purpose, a quiet assurance that even when things don't make sense, you're still where you're supposed to be. Popularity can give you excitement, but only purpose can give you fulfillment. Excitement fades when circumstances change. Fulfillment sustains you through every season. You don't have to wonder if you're doing enough when you're walking in your calling, because your steps are guided by meaning, not measurement. Look around this world. It's full of people who have followers, but no foundation, influence, but no identity, platforms, but no purpose. Don't be one of them. You were created for more than applause. You were designed for divine impact. There is something inside you that the world needs. It cannot be released through popularity. It can only be birthed through purpose. Purpose doesn't need to shout. It just needs to shine. You don't need to be everywhere to be effective. You don't need to be known by everyone to make a difference. You just need to be faithful where you are. Because when your heart is right and your motives are pure, purpose will open doors that popularity could never unlock. There will come a day when the applause stops, the cameras turn away, and the crowd moves on. And on that day, the only thing that will matter is whether you live true to your purpose. Because popularity may give you moments, but purpose gives you meaning. Popularity is about being remembered by people. Purpose is about being recognized by God. So if you ever have to choose purpose. Choose the hard path that builds character over the easy road that builds ego. Choose the quiet work that no one celebrates over the loud noise that has no substance. Choose the depth of calling over the shallowness of approval. Because when you choose purpose, you win a kind of success that can't be taken from you. Peace of mind, clarity of heart, satisfaction of knowing that your life counted for something greater than applause. The world will chase popularity. Let them. You chase purpose. Purpose will outlast platforms, outshine recognition, and outlive trends. Purpose will keep you grounded when the crowd disappears. Purpose will hold you steady when popularity fades. And when the noise of the world quiets down, you'll still be standing. Not because everyone knew your name, but because you fulfilled your reason for being. There comes a time in your journey when you must make a decision, not about what you will do, but about who you will be. The world will try to make you small. It will criticize your confidence, question your dreams, and challenge your worth. But you must look life in the face and say, I refuse to shrink. Because every time you shrink to make others comfortable, every time you dim your light to fit in, every time you silence your voice to avoid judgment, you betray the greatness that lives within you. The truth is, the world doesn't fear your weakness. It fears your strength. It doesn't fear your silence. It fears your sound. When you stand tall, when you walk boldly, when you believe deeply, you disrupt the mediocrity around you, and not everyone can handle that. So they will try to contain you, to label you, to limit you. But you must know who you are enough to say, I won't fit into a box I was never built for. Refusing to shrink means living unapologetically. It means standing in your truth even when others misunderstand it. It means walking in your calling even when others can't see it. It means choosing courage over comfort, purpose over popularity, and faith over fear. You were not created to blend in. You were designed to stand out. And standing out will cost you something, but shrinking will cost you everything. Too many people spend their lives apologizing for their greatness. They play small to make others feel big. They downplay their dreams because others stop believing in theirs. They hide their fire because the room gets uncomfortable when they shine too brightly. But you cannot live your destiny in the shadows of someone else's insecurity. You cannot carry a crown while crawling for approval. Refuse to shrink. Refuse to let anyone's fear define your faith. Refuse to let anyone's doubt dictate your decisions. The same people who tell you that your vision is too big are often the ones who never had the courage to pursue their own. Don't take advice from those who settled. Don't let their comfort zone become your ceiling. You were made for more. More than their opinions, more than their expectations, more than their limits. When you start walking in your power, not everyone will clap. Some will call you arrogant. Some will call you too much. But remember, people who are used to small spaces will always be uncomfortable with expansion. They will question what they cannot comprehend. Don't let their discomfort become your direction. You start shrinking to make them feel safe is the moment you lose your sense of self. Greatness requires space. Purpose requires boldness. Growth requires stretch. You cannot expand and shrink at the same time. You cannot rise and stay small simultaneously. Life will test you. It will put pressure on your potential, obstacles in your path, and critics in your crowd, not to break you, but to build the kind of strength that refuses to shrink. When you know who you are, you no longer chase acceptance. You understand that being misunderstood is part of the process. Every great person was called too much before they became just enough for their purpose. Every visionary was doubted before they were celebrated. Every leader was criticized before they were recognized. You are not here to please, you are here to be. Refusing to shrink doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're present. It means you're showing up fully, flaws and all. It means you're no longer hiding behind excuses or waiting for permission. You're done asking for validation to live the life you were created to live. You're done apologizing for your ambition, your intelligence, your passion, your drive. You're done apologizing for taking up space. Take up space spiritually, emotionally, creatively, professionally. Take up space in every room your purpose walks into. Don't whisper when life gives you the mic. Don't tiptoe when your destiny demands you to stride. Walk in authority, speak in confidence, love in fullness. Create without fear. Lead without apology. You belong here not because someone approved it, but because God ordained it. When you shrink, you silence your own evolution. You bury your brilliance under layers of fear and self-doubt. You suppress the very thing that could liberate others. Because whether you realize it or not, your boldness gives others permission to be bold. Your courage awakens courage. Your light ignites light. And if you shrink, you rob the world of that spark. So stop apologizing for your fire. Stop watering down your vision to make it digestible for small minds. Stop lowering your standards because others refuse to rise. Your calling is not up for debate. Your destiny does not require consensus. The world needs your authenticity, not your adjustment. It needs your full voice, not your filtered one. When you refuse to shrink, you step into a different kind of power, not loud, not boastful, but steady and unstoppable. You move from needing permission to walking in purpose. You start making decisions from vision, not from fear. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. Because people who are assigned to your purpose won't need an explanation. They'll recognize your spirit. There will be seasons when standing tall will make you stand alone. But solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. It's in the quiet that your strength is refined. It's in isolation that your faith deepens. Don't confuse loneliness with loss. Sometimes God removes the noise so you can remember your own voice. Refusing to shrink often means losing the crowd, but gaining clarity. If you've ever felt too loud, too bold, too passionate, too different, that's because you are not meant to fit. You are meant to break molds. You are meant to challenge systems. You are meant to awaken what's asleep in others. Stop trying to make your roars sound like a whisper. Stop dimming your flame to match someone else's flicker. You were never called to fit in. You were called to stand out. And standing out will stretch you. It will test your faith. It will force you to confront your own fears, but it will also elevate you. It will align you. It will free you. Because the moment you decide to live unapologetically, to refuse to shrink, is the moment everything shifts. Your confidence grows. Your peace deepens. Your purpose expands. Refuse to shrink when fear tells you you're not ready. Refuse to shrink when others say you're not qualified. Refuse to shrink when life gets uncomfortable. Keep expanding, keep growing, keep becoming. Every challenge you face is an invitation to stretch, not retreat. Every setback is a setup for expansion. Every limitation is a test of your resilience. You are not here to live small. You are here to live fully, boldly, purposefully. You were created to shake the atmosphere, to shift perspectives, to leave a mark that cannot be erased. Don't let fear convince you that humility means hiding. Real humility is honoring who you are and what you carry. So stand tall, speak boldly, Dream fearlessly. Live loudly. Refuse to shrink, because the world doesn't need a quieter version of you. It needs your whole truth, your whole light, your whole self. Apologize for the space your purpose takes up. Don't tone down the very thing that makes you divine. Before you can conquer the world, you must first conquer yourself. Before you can lead, you must first learn who you are. Before you can build a life of meaning, you must first understand the foundation, your own soul. Self-knowledge is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is not a concept for the wise and the learned. It is the starting point of every great journey. Because when you know yourself, you stop being easily shaken by the world. You stop being tossed around by opinions, trends, or temporary circumstances. You become rooted, grounded, unmovable. You walk with clarity. Because you are no longer living by reaction, you are living by revelation. To know yourself is to be powerful. Not in the world's definition of power, not domination, not control, not arrogance, but a quiet, deep, unshakable strength that comes from understanding who you are and why you are here. Most people spend their lives trying to master everything around them while remaining strangers to themselves. They chase wealth, fame, validation, and applause, yet have never sat still long enough to meet the person living inside their own soul. But the truth is, if you don't know yourself, you will misuse every blessing that comes your way. You will sabotage your own success. You will wear identities that don't fit, speak words that don't align, chase goals that don't fulfill. Self-knowledge is the mirror that reveals both your beauty and your brokenness, forces you to see beyond the surface, to confront your insecurities, acknowledge your wounds, and embrace your strengths. It's not always comfortable. In fact, it's often painful, because knowing yourself means facing truths you'd rather ignore. It means peeling back layers of masks you've worn for so long that you started believing they were you. But until you face those truths, you cannot be free. You cannot lead. You cannot grow. When you truly know yourself, you no longer measure your worth by comparison. You stop running someone else's race. You stop trying to imitate lives that were never meant for you. You understand that your journey, your timing, your process, they're all divinely designed for your unique purpose. Self-knowledge teaches you that being different is not a flaw, it's a feature. It's what sets you apart for the work only you can do. And when you stand in that awareness, the noise of the world starts to lose its power. The world will always try to tell you who to be. It will define you by your mistakes, your past, your status, or your appearance. It will try to label you, box you, and limit you. But when you know yourself, those labels can't stick. You can hear their voices without absorbing their judgment. You can stand tall in a world that constantly tries to make you doubt your value. Because self-knowledge gives you internal validation. It anchors you in truth, not opinion. So many people are exhausted, not because life is hard, but because they are performing for approval. They're playing roles, chasing acceptance, hiding behind titles, and pretending to be someone they're not. That's a heavy way to live. You lose your peace when you lose yourself. You lose your joy when your identity becomes a performance. But when you know yourself, you live lighter. You stop acting and start existing. You stop striving to be seen and start shining from within. Self-knowledge is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about becoming aware of your patterns, your triggers, your passions, and your purpose. It's about recognizing when you're operating from fear instead of faith. It's about knowing what drains you and what fills you. Because until you understand yourself, you'll keep repeating cycles without realizing why. You'll keep walking in circles wondering why nothing changes. Begins the moment awareness begins. Knowing yourself also means knowing your worth. Not the kind of worth that depends on what you achieve, the kind that's inherent, the worth you were born with. You are not valuable because of your title, your possessions, or your popularity. You are valuable because you exist. And when that truth sinks in, no rejection can shake you. No failure can define you. No success can inflate you. You move through life with humility and strength because your identity no longer fluctuates with circumstances. Self-knowledge also empowers you to make better decisions. When you know your values, your principles, and your priorities, You stop saying yes to everything that looks good and start saying yes to what aligns with your soul. You stop chasing instant gratification because you understand long-term purpose. You stop settling for relationships that drain you, jobs that suffocate you, and environments that shrink you. Because you've learned that peace is more valuable than popularity and alignment is more rewarding than attention. There is a divine power in awareness. When you know yourself, you become less reactive and more responsive. You stop being manipulated by emotions or circumstances. You recognize when your ego tries to take control and you humble it with wisdom. You identify when fear disguises itself as logic and you confront it with faith. You learn to listen to your intuition, that quiet voice within that always knows before your mind can analyze. And the more you trust that voice, the more confident you become in your direction. The greatest battles you'll ever fight are not external. They are internal. The war between who you truly are and who the world wants you to be, between your higher self and your fearful self, between the truth of your soul and the lies of your doubt. Self-knowledge arms you for that battle. It gives you discernment. It gives you the power to choose peace over pressure, authenticity over approval, purpose over popularity. When you know yourself, you stop begging others to see you. You stop needing external validation to feel valuable. You realize that people's opinions are reflections of their own experiences, not definitions of your worth. You stop chasing applause because you've already found your rhythm. You stop competing because you finally understand there is no competition when you are in your lane. There is only creation, growth, and alignment. Self-knowledge also reveals your blind spots. It humbles you. It reminds you that growth is a lifelong process. It allows you to take accountability for your actions, to apologize when you're wrong, and to keep evolving without shame. Because true self-awareness is not defensive, it's transformative. It's not about protecting your image, it's about expanding your soul. The more you know yourself, the more peace you carry, because peace comes from alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and beliefs are all in harmony. You stop living in internal conflict. You stop fighting yourself. You stop running from yourself. You stop fearing solitude because solitude becomes your sanctuary. You start enjoying your own company because you've made peace with who you are. And once you know yourself deeply, no one can take that power from you. They can question your choices, but they can't shake your certainty. They can mock your dreams, but they can't extinguish your vision. They can walk away, but they can't diminish your worth. Because your foundation is not built on external validation. It's built on inner truth. So take the time to meet yourself. Sit in silence long enough to hear your own heart beat. Reflect on what moves you, what scares you, what inspires you, and what heals you. Listen to your inner wisdom. It speaks softly, but it speaks truth. The world will always be noisy, always shifting, always demanding. When you know yourself, you carry stillness within. You move through storms with serenity because your power is rooted, not rented. Self-knowledge is not just power, it is freedom. Freedom from comparison, from confusion, from compromise. Freedom to live as the fullest version of who you are. Because the moment you know yourself, you stop living to please and start living to purpose. You stop existing and start becoming. You stop being influenced by every wind of opinion and start standing firm like a mountain that knows its own strength. So look within not once, but daily. Keep learning, keep unlearning, keep evolving. Because the greatest discovery you will ever make is not out there in the world, but right here, inside you. Self-knowledge is power, the kind of power that can't be taken, only awakened. And when it awakens, everything about your life begins to rise. From the moment you take your first breath, the world begins its attempt to define you. Before you even understand who you are, voices start whispering, sometimes shouting, labels that try to tell you what you can and cannot be. They label you by your failures, your background, your gender, your appearance, your mistakes, and even your silence. They say, you're not enough. They say, you're too different. They say, you're too late. And if you're not careful, you start to believe them. You start to shrink to fit into names you never agreed to wear. Comes a moment when your soul must rise and declare, I am not what they call me. I am who I was created to be. Rejecting the labels is not rebellion. care enough. It's revelation. It's the moment when you stop allowing other people's opinions to become your identity. It's when you realize that you were not born to be defined by limitations. You were born to define what's possible through transformation. You must understand that labels are the enemy of growth. They are words that try to keep you where you were instead of where you're going. World loves boxes because boxes are predictable, controllable, easy to categorize. But greatness doesn't live in boxes. Purpose doesn't fit in categories. Destiny doesn't have a label. Some people wear labels so long they forget they were ever free. Walk around with names stitched to their identity. Failure, broken, unworthy, average, too much, not enough. They carry the weight of other people's judgments as if it were truth. But a label is just a limitation dressed up as language. And you were never meant to live under the language of limitation. You were meant to live under the promise of purpose. When you accept labels, you hand over your power. You allow someone else's perception to define your reality. You start living in their version of your story instead of your own. The moment you reject those labels, something changes. You start to see yourself as more than what you've been through. You start to rise above what they said you'd never become. You start walking like someone who remembers they have the power to rename themselves. Rejecting labels requires courage because it often means standing alone. The world feels threatened by those who refuse to conform. It's easier for people to label you than to understand you. It's easier to call you different than to admit you're evolving. But the truth is, called different is often divine. What they call strange is often sacred. What they call too much is often exactly what the world needs. You see, labels come from perception, not truth. They are projections of other people's fears, insecurities, or limited vision. They label you based on their own comfort zone. If they've never seen what you carry, they'll call it impossible. If they've never walked your path, they'll call it strange. But their limited view doesn't diminish your purpose. Their misunderstanding doesn't erase your meaning. Rejecting the labels means going back to the source of your identity. It means remembering that who you are is not defined by the opinions of people, but by the design of God. You were created intentionally, with precision, with purpose. The labels others place on you are temporary, but your essence, your spirit, your calling are eternal. When you truly understand that, you stop chasing validation. You stop performing for approval. You stop explaining your existence to those who were never meant to understand it. Think about how many times in life you've been mislabeled. Someone saw your struggle and called it failure, not realizing it was training. Someone saw your solitude and called it loneliness, not realizing it was preparation. Someone saw your silence and called it weakness, not realizing it was wisdom. People label what they don't understand. Understanding is not a requirement for your destiny. Clarity comes from within, not from the crowd. The danger of accepting labels is that they become self-fulfilling. When you hear a lie long enough, it starts to sound like truth. You begin to live down to people's expectations instead of rising to your potential. You start speaking words that reinforce your cage. Freedom begins the moment you change your language. The moment you say, I am not what they said about me. The moment you say, I will not carry a name that doesn't belong to me. You begin to rewrite your story the moment you refuse to answer to the wrong name. Rejecting labels also means forgiving yourself for the times you believed them, because at some point you probably did. You internalized someone's criticism. You allowed someone's rejection to convince you that you weren't worthy of love, success, or happiness. But healing begins when you say, that's not my name anymore. You might have been broken, but you are not broken. You might have failed, but you are not a failure. You might have been overlooked, but you are not forgotten. You have the authority to rename yourself. Every great person who ever walked this earth had to reject a label. Some were called dreamers until their dreams became reality. Some were called fools until their faith proved true. Some were called outcasts until their difference became their distinction. If you live for their approval, You'll die from their rejection. But if you live by your truth, their labels will lose power over you. There will always be people who try to define you by your past because they're intimidated by your future. Always be voices that try to remind you of what you used to be. But your past is not your prison. It's your preparation. Every mistake, every setback, every scar, they're not labels, they're lessons. And lessons don't define you, they refine you. You must understand that your name carries power. When you walk into a room knowing who you are, the atmosphere shifts. You no longer need to defend yourself because authenticity speaks louder than explanation. You no longer seek validation because truth doesn't beg to be believed. When you reject the labels, you step into liberation. A freedom that can't be faked or taken. Some people will struggle to relate to the unboxed version of you. That's okay. Growth will always confuse those who knew you in smaller seasons. Don't let their confusion become your constraint. You're allowed to evolve beyond what they remember. You're allowed to outgrow the names they gave you. You're allowed to become someone new without their permission. When you reject the labels, you reclaim your narrative. You take the pen back from the world and start writing your story again. A story not based on their expectations, but on your revelation. Story that honors your truth, your growth, your purpose. And as you walk in that truth, you'll begin to attract people who see you clearly. Not for who you were, but for who you are becoming. You are not your mistakes. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not their opinion. You are not their misunderstanding. You are not their label. You are light. You are purpose. You are transformation in progress. You are evidence that new beginnings are possible. So today, make a decision to release every false name spoken over your life. Refuse to let words built from insecurity shape your destiny. Stand tall in your truth and say, I am not who they said I was. I am more. I am becoming. Every time you choose authenticity over acceptance, you tear down a label. Every time you choose purpose over pressure, you destroy a stereotype. Every time you walk in your truth, you silence a lie. The world will keep labeling. You don't have to keep answering. You owe no explanation for your evolution. You owe no apology for your growth. Labels are for containers, not for people. And you, my friend, are too vast to be contained. You were made to overflow, to expand, to redefine. Reject the labels because you are not meant to fit in. You are meant to stand out. You are not meant to blend. You are meant to blaze. The world may not understand it now, but when you rise in authenticity, your life will become your answer. You don't need to fight their words. Just live your truth, because no label can survive the light of someone who finally knows who they are. There comes a time in every life when you must stop searching outward and start listening inward. The world will always offer noise. Constant chatter, endless comparisons, the pressure to perform, the temptation to prove. But peace, purpose, and power are not found out there. They are born within. To live from within means to move through life guided not by what the world demands of you, but by what your spirit knows to be true. It means you stop chasing validation and start cultivating alignment. It means your decisions, your dreams, and your direction flow from a deeper place, the core of who you are. Living from within is not about isolation, it's about integration. It's about bringing your inner world into harmony so that your outer life reflects peace instead of chaos. So many people live disconnected. Their actions contradict their values, their words mask their wounds, and their hearts cry out for rest while their minds race to perform. But the life of purpose, the life of meaning, begins when you decide that your inner life will lead your outer expression. The world teaches us to build from the outside in, to decorate the shell while ignoring the soul. It tells you that success is the measure of your worth, that attention equals importance, that applause validates existence. But if you live by those standards, you will forever be chasing what can never satisfy you. Because external success without internal stability will always leave you empty. True success is peace, and peace is an inside job. Living from within begins with awareness. It means taking the time to sit still long enough to hear your own soul speak. Most people are afraid of silence because silence confronts them with themselves. When the noise fades, they are forced to face the unresolved pain. unhealed memories, the unanswered questions. But silence is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is in the quiet that you begin to remember who you really are beneath the roles, beneath the titles, beneath the masks. When you live from within, your worth stops being negotiable. You no longer depend on compliments to feel confident or achievements to feel adequate. You understand that your value is not earned, it is inherent. You are valuable not because of what you do, but because of who you are. That realization shifts everything. You stop hustling for worth and start living from wholeness. You stop chasing validation and start choosing authenticity. You stop striving to be accepted and start standing in your truth. Living from within is not weakness, it is wisdom. It means you trust your inner compass more than the crowd. It means you are willing to disappoint others to stay true to yourself. It means you no longer let the opinions of strangers dictate your peace. Because when you are anchored within, the storms around you lose their power to shake you. You stop reacting to every wave of criticism and start responding from a place of calm clarity. When you live from within, you learn the art of discernment, the ability to know what is for you and what is not. You stop forcing doors that aren't meant to open and start recognizing divine timing. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20 because you understand that your journey has its own rhythm, its own purpose, its own grace. The noise of comparison quiets when you are connected to your own center. So many people spend their lives seeking fulfillment in things that can never fill them. Try to fix an internal emptiness with external answers, more money, more attention, more possessions, more status. Those things can only decorate your life. They can never define it. You can have everything the world calls success and still feel like something is missing. Because what's missing is not out there, it's in here. The soul is not satisfied with surface pleasures. It longs for depth, meaning, and connection. Living from within is a spiritual practice. It means listening to that still small voice, the one that whispers truth even when your mind is confused. It means following peace even when it doesn't make sense to others. It means knowing when to rest, when to move, and when to release. When you are aligned with your inner voice, life begins to flow instead of fight. You stop striving to control everything and start trusting that what is meant for you cannot miss you. When you live from within, you live differently. You speak differently. You walk differently. You no longer react to chaos with chaos. You respond with calm. You no longer chase after every opportunity that flashes before you. You choose the ones that align with your purpose. You no longer run from solitude. You cherish it because you know that clarity is born in stillness. You become more intentional, more peaceful, more grounded. Living from within also means healing from within. It means no longer waiting for others to fix what's broken in you. It means taking ownership of your growth, your emotions, and your evolution. You stop blaming people for what they did and start focusing on how you can rise from it. Healing is not forgetting the pain, it's learning from it. It's allowing the wound to become wisdom, not bitterness. When you heal internally, your external world begins to change automatically. This kind of life demands honesty. You must be willing to look at yourself without judgment, to admit where you've been pretending, where you've been avoiding, where you've been settling, because growth doesn't come from perfection, it comes from awareness. When you live from within, you no longer fear truth because you understand that truth liberates. Even when it's uncomfortable, truth sets your soul free. Beauty of living from within is that it makes you unshakable. You are no longer swayed by trends, opinions, or the ever-changing tides of the world. You are guided by something deeper, something eternal. You develop an inner peace that circumstances cannot steal. You begin to see challenges as teachers instead of threats. You begin to view delays as direction, not denial. You stop begging life to be easy and start learning how to be strong. Living from within gives you clarity about what matters most. It reminds you that relationships, peace, and purpose will always outweigh possessions, popularity, and performance. You learn to prioritize connection over competition, contribution over consumption, and gratitude over greed. You find joy not in what you have, in who you are becoming. When you live from within, you stop existing in survival mode. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You become awake spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You notice beauty in ordinary moments. You begin to live with presence instead of pretense. You begin to see each day not as a burden, but as a sacred opportunity to align your outer world with your inner truth. To live from within is to lead from authenticity. It's to build a life that reflects your soul, not your fears. It's to speak love from a place of fullness, not emptiness. It's to realize that peace is not something you find. It's something you choose. You choose it every time you turn inward instead of running outward. You will still face challenges. You will still walk through storms, but when your strength comes from within, no storm can uproot you. You may bend, but you won't break. You may stumble, but you won't lose your way, because you've built your life on something unshakable, your inner foundation. So stop searching for meaning in things that fade. Stop seeking approval from people who don't even know your soul. Stop chasing happiness like it's hidden somewhere out there. Everything you need to be whole is already within you. Peace, strength, clarity, purpose, love, it's all there waiting to be awakened. When you live from within, you live with power. Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that radiates. The kind that transforms rooms with quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself because it knows itself. The kind that inspires others to look inward and find their own light. So take a deep breath, slow down, listen. The answers you've been searching for are not lost, they're inside you. The peace you've been chasing is not missing, it's waiting. The love you crave is not somewhere else, it's already yours. You just have to return to yourself, live from within. Because when the world changes, trends fade, and people come and go, the one constant you will always have is your own soul. And when your soul is at peace, everything else begins to align. That's not just living, that's truly being alive.